So here we are at Abbey Road in London. So we're here with Mr. Chris Parker. How are you?
I'm very well. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to be met. Lovely to meet you too. So this is interesting. You're an assistant engineer about to become a recordist, but the recordist is not an engineer.
No.
Can you define that role? Because I think most people would think of the two jobs outside of producer would be assistant and engineer. So what's the role of the recordist?
I guess the role of the recordist is literally you are the person in control of the recording device and all of the ancillary things that go with that. We tend to do a lot of TV and film scoring work at Abbey Road, so there's quite a lot of sort of ancillary files and data management to go on, and you get, picture to work with, and like picture security is kind of like part of our responsibility. So that's being in charge of that is a fair amount of work in its own right. So
it's like a necessary part of the job, because when you're dealing with possibly 80 people in an orchestra or something like that, it's not something that could just be handled by an engineer and an assistant. It could be, but it's be a long day.
It's easier if the project generally goes smoother if it's not. Then you have.
Right. So if it's a string date, give us a little bit of an idea of what your job would entail.
In terms of
as a recordist.
A recordist.
Yeah.
Well, we get in a couple of hours before the session will begin.
Yeah.
I'd be tasked with preparing the Pro Tools sessions, and making sure all of that stuff is ready to go. Which is it's different from just being an assistant to the engineer. Like if the engineer's going around the room in the morning, placing his microphones and adjusting heights, it's better to have someone else going around with doing that, and then the recordist can be focused on dealing with managing their media and all of the.
But it makes sense in a larger situation, because you've got maybe 80 microphones up. Yeah,
you could have 80, you could have 100, you could have 120, you could have tons of stuff, and you can end up being under quite a lot of time pressure with the amount of stuff you need to get through in a day. So there's, if you're doing a band recording, you might arrange to meet at 11 o'clock, and then you might have a bit of breakfast, coffee, shuffle around, put some microphones up and have a chat. If you do that with an orchestra, they'll be booked 10 till 1, 2 till 5, 6 till 9, and then outside of those 3-hour blocks, they don't do any recording. So you have to get everything you need in those times. So everything has to be ready to go perfectly at 10 o'clock.
Wonderful.
So yeah, dealing with the physical recording side of the back end of that is its job in its own sort of.
But for an orchestra day, I presume there's more than one assistant engineer.
Yeah, so we generally have a second assistant on those orchestra dates that can go around with the engineer and do other stuff, run interference, fix headphones, because the recordist is usually welded into the chair in front of the computer, just doing that all day.
Marvellous. How long have you been here?
I've been here 4.5 years at Abbey Road, and before I worked here, I worked at a different studio in town called Angel Studios.
What were you doing at the previous studio?
I was doing the same thing there.
Right. So when you came here, did you go straight in as an assistant, or?
Yeah. So I was sort of a position that came available at Abbey Road that was at a sort of similar level to I was at when I was there, and I was looking to move on and do some different projects in a different scale, and those cards just happened to fall perfectly at the right time.
From what we found out talking to mastering engineers and engineers here, there was a job description where basically you came in and did a bit of everything. Have you had that experience?
It's probably got more specialised than that than nowadays. I didn't come into Abbey Road as a runner, or I came in to do this role basically, and to learn the ropes of how this building operated before moving on to like higher profile stuff.
Give us a little bit of a look. For an orchestra date, you're coming in 2 hours before, or?
Yeah, between 2 hours, an hour and a half before 10 o'clock downbeat. So it's like 8:30. You'll come in, open up your Pro Tools, do any last minute prep that's come in overnight. If there's been any more cues added, or if there's been any updates to any cues, you'll check the microphones through with the engineer, see if they're all still there, all still working. because some of ours are, have been around since new, so that's a fair amount of time now. So make sure they're all still tip top, still all working. Buzz the desk through, just checking everything again, checking all of the headphones, make sure that none of those have been tripped over in the night or in the morning as everyone's been wheeling a double bass in or what have you.
What was your background? Were you a musician before you got into the recording side?
So I was basically I was a guitar player. That was my sort of musical background, is not classical music or a classical instrument at all. I was in a sort of noisy indie bands, and what was I doing? We were making a demo with my school band at the time. And I borrowed a cassette, sort of 4-track off the singer's brother, and it was like, this is loads of fun. This is more fun than playing in the band. I want to do this for a living. And then I was deciding to take myself down the path of being a recording engineer, basically.
Did you do any schooling on it, or just go work in studios and learn that way?
No, I think the schooling is almost the sort of accepted path into it now for people of my generation and younger. It would be very difficult to rock up to here and at like 60 and having left school and join part of the runners team, because most of the runners are fed either from a slightly later point in their life, where they're at university. And so I did an undergraduate degree that had like a 4th year in the course, basically, or the third year in the course, in the middle was a placement. So I went out and lived and worked in a rock and roll sort of residential studio in Lincolnshire for a year, which was great fun.
What was the degree?
I studied at Huddersfield. I studied, it was popular music production, it was called, the course, but I don't think that course exists anymore. They call it something else.
Did you learn consoles, DAWs, combination thereof?
Combination of all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. The nature of those sort of undergraduate courses, they try and make you as employable as possible across a wide variety of sectors that you could end up possibly working in the music industry. I was always quite focused in that I knew that I wanted to work in a recording studio and be a recording engineer, but not everyone knew that at the time. And so, they teach you programming, they teach you web design, they teach you like music industry business practices, and they teach you, music theory, they teach you loads of stuff, and recording, and engineering, physics, because it's all potentially useful depending on what area you end up going into.
Did it have a console?
Did it have a console? It did. Yeah, it had. Yeah. We had a couple of different studios. But a lot of like Yamaha O2Rs when I was there.
Oh, I remember those very well.
Going back a bit now, but yeah. I don't know what they've got at the moment.
But no other large format consoles or anything?
Not at the time that I was there. I think they've expanded since and built some studios. But
yeah, I'm intrigued because lots of people end up working in studios without consoles these days.
Very much so.
And then what about, do you have time outside of the hours you work here to produce your own stuff and work on your own stuff at home?
There's not a lot of time left when we're not on sessions. We sort of touched on like what time of the day our day would start, and typically if we're getting in at 8 in the morning, we might do 3 triple session, or 3. You could do a triple session day, so you'd be finishing at 9 o'clock, and then you could have a turnaround, and a turnaround in Studio One could take 3-4 hours after that. So then, not a lot of time left in the day.
Not
for
really.
Eating and sleeping before you've got to come back and do it again the following day. But
I suppose my next question would be, how close do you live to Abbey Road?
I actually live relatively close. It's about 25-30 minute journey away.
Okay, that makes sense.
So just on the underground. I live in London Bridge. So
oh wow,
which is very handy for here and the other scoring studios in London.
Do you work at other studios ever then?
Very occasionally we get to, if you're attached to a project for a length of time, people can request us to go over to Air for a day or two, just for sort of continuity's sake, rather than dropping someone else into the middle of the project. It does happen.
Interesting.
But not super regularly.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Probably good for Abbey Road as well, because they lend you out to the composer, arranger, or whatever it might be.
I think it's good for all concerned.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. I mean, so who would you consider your main mentors here, apart from Merrick sitting behind you?
Obviously, Merrick's the main man.
Edit that out.
Mentors. I'd say we don't really have a sort of like a formal mentoring system. None of us are really tied to any one particular engineer. We all sort of work with everyone.
Right.
But we all work with all of the engineers, and it's a lot of us have been in and around each other for long enough because we've all come from these sort of similar educational backgrounds. You're sort of, in an odd way, everyone is sort of each other's mentor. Like I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues this morning about data security and like best practices, and like we are kind of each other's mentor in that, like chatting amongst yourselves, like we'll fire off something in someone's brain and then you'll develop that idea and you'll talk through things, and you're kind of, in some respects, you're working out best practices as you go along.
I'm intrigued what your conversation about data security was.
It's probably not as interesting as you think.
No, I've had quite a few experiences of that with working on albums with major label artists. And we've been really good at keeping it until it got to the label, and then it gets leaked immediately.
Yeah.
They're always the one that's so concerned about it not being leaked.
But
when it gets to them,
more and more people want you to be accountable for media and content. And yes, making sure that doesn't get out of hand, or
Well, how about
I'm not sure what I can say or what I can't say about that.
Well, practical stuff like, are you backing up to multiple locations? How many backups do you make after a recording, for instance?
I tend to make 2 backups all the time. So I use Keyboard Maestro, anything like that, some sort of shortcut thing that every time I take it out record, it backs up automatically.
Right. It used to be
across a couple of drives.
Well, I remember it was Synchronizer Pro X for years, but they stopped supporting Macs, didn't they?
Yeah, not that it's an advert, but I use ChronoSync.
Right.
It's great.
Yep.
Useful. Use it for all sorts of stuff.
I've stopped with the cloud-based stuff though. After Gobbler's disaster.
We certainly don't do that in real time, and we have dedicated file transfer protocols that we have to adhere to if we're shipping digital content around the world.
And you're owned by UMG.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I'm sure they have all kinds of protocols.
They have protocols. Disney have protocols. Marvel have protocols. Everyone has their own protocols of stuff that you can and can't do.
It might just sound like I'm the guy that hits record on Pro Tools.
I mean, if you want to distill it down to its sort of, its most basic thing, then yes, you are pressing record on Pro Tools, but you're also
file management.
Your file management, your data management, you're responsible for all the backups. You could have 50, 60 cues in a film, and you could have 3 or 4 versions of each reel of the picture.
Are you expected to be able to read music?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, for sure. You're expected to follow the score as you go through, and you're expected to be able to be given a score with an edit decision list and make the edit. For instance, that will probably happen less when you're recording a film score, because you'll have a producer there someone's getting paid to produce the score, and they'll probably say, previous take was better for bar 12, and then you can chop bar 12 in, and that's pretty quick. But if you're doing a classical recording or something that's not totally mapped out, then you are expected to be able to follow the score and be able to make markers and identify where bar 30 was in this piece of music that was just recorded totally wild. So reading a score is to a point is
Did you learn that at school?
Is required. No, I learned that on the job, basically, because I didn't learn a classical instrument. I still don't play a classical instrument. I like making loud rock songs and stuff. So I can follow through a score and find errors, but I can't look at a score and go, well, you've spelt the viola part wrong there. But that's not my job. And there is someone else present to do that usually.
Fantastic. You're also presumably syncing to picture?
Yeah, or most of the time for film work, unless it's the last couple of projects over the past year where they haven't bothered sending a picture because it's been, I don't know whether it's been too high profile or they don't want to risk getting it leaked, but occasionally they won't send you a picture, but most of the time you get a picture.
Marvellous. Yeah. Where do your ambitions lay?
My ambitions lie about 10 feet further left or right, to be able to sit in the middle of the console permanently and just move the faders up and down and listen to the glorious music.
For Abbey Road, what is that process? Is that X number of years doing this? Is that
Unfortunately, it's kind of dead man's shoes, or just whenever the opportunities arise. You can't. I think patience is a virtue in this game, and you keep plugging away and doing the best you can, and opportunities will arise. And
so basically,
grasp them when you get them.
You're poisoning the engineer. Is what you're saying.
I won't go as far as to say he's poisoning the engineer. Maybe. No.
I remember Al Schmidt telling me that. I said, "What was your first engineering experience?" And he said the engineer was ill, didn't show up, and he was setting up mics.
Yeah.
And he said the artist said to him, "Well, you're it. You're the engineer." And
Go for it.
He's like, "I don't know if I'm ready for it." And he said, "Yeah, you'll be fine, kid." I said, "Who was the client?" He goes, "Duke Ellington."
That's a good story. But that's not an uncommon experience. Like people get ill, or the train gets stuck up. Something happens on the way in.
Leaves on track.
Yeah, it leaves on track, and then the session's still going to start at 10. So someone has to do it. Everyone shuffles up one for however long it takes for the engineer to get there, and then you carry on. So, yeah. Happens.
Abbey Road, I'm sure, is so insanely busy, and there's no downtime. But is there opportunities where you could bring in projects and stuff like that? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, it happens relatively regularly, because they want you to go out and have connections in the music industry and bring people in. Not everyone has tons of budget. They definitely want us to go out and make connections and bring people in and stuff.
Fantastic.
For sure.
Well, best of luck. And
Thank you very much.
Without killing off an engineer, I hope you're there sooner rather than later.
Me too. But
Yeah. But, keep poisoning it. I'm sure it'll work.
I'll try something.
That didn't happen. I didn't say that. So here we are with Marta de Nozzi. How are you?
I'm all good. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Now, you do a lot of string sessions. Is that pretty much your daily bread and butter?
Well, yeah, let's say that I work at Abbey Road Studios, and we have different studios of different sizes, and the one I love the most is Studio 1, which is the biggest one. And we do a lot of orchestras there, a lot of string sections, even in Studio 2, which is a bit smaller, but it can accommodate a pretty big string section. So yeah, I would not say on a daily basis because the work can vary, but yeah, a lot of orchestras and a lot of strings, yeah, definitely.
How long have you been here?
3 years and a half now, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Where did you come from?
I'm originally from Rome, Italy.
Beautiful.
I studied there. I got my degree there, and then I moved to London because I wanted to work in a big studio. So, Abbey Road is Abbey Road. So I studied one more year at the Abbey Road Institute, and after that I knew there was a position opening for a runner's job here at Abbey Road. So I applied, and I got the job. So I spent some time here as a runner, and now I'm assistant engineer.
So you studied in Rome, you did your degree there.
Yes.
Then you came here, you did 1 year at Abbey Road Institute. Tell us a little bit more though, on a day-to-day basis as an assistant here, what does your job really entail?
Well, I guess the biggest difference that you notice when you pass from being a runner to being an assistant is that as a runner you're available for the whole building, and you're available for everyone if they need help. When you become assistant, you actually are assigned to a session. So you take care of that session for that day or the days that the session is running. So I guess it's more focused on being in control of what is happening in the session, being informed about everything, the setup times, changeover times in between days, having the right amount of help around and asking the runners team to be around for that. And also having a close relationship with the recordist who's assigned to the session in terms of what needs to be done or booked or taken out of the cupboards.
Presumably each one of those recordists or engineers all has slightly different ways of working, so you...
Yeah, definitely. Depending on the engineer, we kind of have to tailor the way we work around the engineer's needs. So sometimes we have a bit more room to maneuver in some of the ways the session is managed, and some other times the engineer wants to be completely in control. So we're just, there to serve the session, the music, and the engineer. So in terms of what I actually do on a daily basis is being sure that we have all we need for the session. We have a lot of microphones here at Abbey Road. So.
Do you often become a liaison for the studio because the project brings in an outside engineer?
Yeah, I would say there is more the recordist that needs to talk to the external engineer about the session setup, because the recordist is the one that is managing the Pro Tools. So Pro Tools needs to basically mirror the setup in terms of number of channels and number of passes we're recording of the same thing. So then it comes to me to be in charge of the fact that the live room is set up properly, that we have everything patched in the right place, doing the patch bay, and making sure that the signals arrive in the right places. And also I'm usually taking care of the communications. So if there's a need for video calls to happen during the sessions, and there's the need to stream audio around the world for the session, that's usually something that I take care of.
Fantastic. It's quite a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. But, we're at Abbey Road, and we're here to deliver top service if we can.
Was that always a dream of yours to ultimately be an engineer?
As many of us, I think, I started just with playing an instrument and the love for music. But when you start with that, you don't actually, I don't know.
You don't know there's all these other jobs around it.
That's true. And also you think about yourself as probably, I don't know, the artist or the player. You don't ever think about yourself like the sound engineer, because that's not a thing that everybody talks about. Everybody talks about, oh, you're playing. Can we play together? Can we do this together? So growing up, I had a few bands and I was singing, I was playing, but I don't know, I didn't feel like it was my path. I didn't want to do that as a job. And then I found out there was sound engineering was a thing, like it actually existed, and it was something that you could learn to do. And yeah, out of the curiosity of why are the records that I listen to, why are they sounding so good, and why my music is not. So that's what kick-started it. And then when I grew up, I did some live experience, but I didn't think it was for me. So my goal was always to work on a studio, preferably a big studio with a lot of studios inside.
So you thought I'd just go and work at the most famous studio in the whole world?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's basically what happened. Yeah, I was like, if I don't try it now, that I'm that I want to do it, and I'm young enough to try, when? So I just took my luggage and my backpack from my home, and I said bye. And
bye, Mum, Dad.
Bye, Mum, Dad. I'm gonna try this. If it doesn't go, I'll be back soon.
And 3.5 years later, you're here.
Yeah, still here.
Amazing. Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing marvellously well. We're sitting here with Sarah Meyz, who is a senior runner at Abbey Road.
Yes.
Now, you've got a very interesting story. You started off in Brazil, born and bred?
Yeah, born and bred in Brazil until 2014. I was just turned 18, and then I left to the US in Boston.
To go to Berkeley?
To go to Berkeley College of Music, yeah. I got a scholarship, like a full tuition scholarship to study at Berkeley. And before that, I did a few summer programs at the college. The first one in Valencia in 2012, which was also a scholarship between a partnership between Lollapalooza and Festival and Berkeley. So I went there summer 2012, did this amazing jazz and blues improvisation summer program.
Lollapalooza which has
Yes.
definitely got nothing to do with jazz and blues.
No,
but that's
it's
incredible.
quite different. Yeah.
Wow.
And then from there, I got another scholarship to a summer program in Boston, the 5-week program, which is like a mini experience of what Berklee would be. And there I did an internship, I did a scholarship, oh my God, what's the name? Interview and
all right, we have to
audition. Yes, there you go.
Oh, it's okay. I'll let
Yeah,
you do
oh
it.
good. So at the program, I did an interview and an audition to get a scholarship at the college. And that's when I started at the spring of 2014. At
That's
Berklee.
wonderful. Did you?
Yeah.
How long were you at Berklee for?
6 years. So at Berklee, I did a dual major program.
Yep.
So it was the music production engineering program and the vocal performance program, along with a minor in music technology and an internship at the end of it as well.
So you've got this 2 areas. You're an artist
Yes.
and producer, engineer, plus with the music technology.
Yeah.
So you had placements in studios and stuff during that 6-year period? Did you?
Sort of.
Internships?
It works a bit different there. But I did during Berklee. I did along with the college. I did a 1-year internship in a studio in Boston called Mad Oak. So I was there just for a year, going like once a week, twice a week, just helping out in sessions, assisting engineering. And then at the end of like my last semester in 2019, I did a 1-semester internship here in the UK, in Bristol, with the re-recording mixer called Andrew Wilson. We met previously at Real World Studios at a trip that Berklee does every year to the UK. It's basically like we spent 10 days here, 5 in London, including Abbey Road, and then another 5 at Real World, just recording bands with different producers and engineers.
That's
And then,
incredible.
yeah, it was quite a trip.
We can talk a bit more about Abbey Road
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. How was,
Yeah,
in a
of
second,
course.
how was Real World?
Oh, it was great. It was just this, studio in the middle of nowhere, basically, in the middle of the countryside, and you're just completely removed from any chaos from the city. So it's really good to be creative and just focus on your,
And that enormous
recording.
control room.
Oh yes!
Control
Oh my
room
God!
set.
You could do anything there. It's like
Yeah.
because they sometimes record in the control room as well. So that was cool to see, like a different setup, sort of thing. So that was great. Yeah.
So you came here, obviously, to Abbey Road as well during that period. Is that where
Yeah.
you started to kind of establish a relationship with people
A
here?
little bit, yeah. So that was when I first thought about coming to the UK to work, and was like, oh, maybe I could, try coming to Abbey Road at some point, because I've always wanted to live in the UK, and I love the culture, I love the people, the food, the place itself, the architecture. So when I came here, and I was like at Abbey Road, you're like, oh, this magical historical place, like this would be really cool. So I started to sort of build a dream from there. And then when I came back at the end of that year in 2019 to do the internship, we also spent 2 weeks here mixing for the final mix of the film that we were working on. So that was another time where I was like getting to know some more people and the space, and just really kind of falling in love with this studio. And then, but it was only in 2021 that I had the opportunity of applying for a job here. Because I went back to the US, pandemic happened, so I was just spending a few months there, and then in California, then Boston, went back to Brazil for a bit, and in Brazil, that's when I decided I wanted to come to the UK and started to get my contacts with Abbey Road, and that's how everything started.
So what was the process to actually get a job here? You just wrote and said, oh, I've been here a couple of times, I've done a couple of things. Is there an interview process?
There was, yeah. So I got in contact, me and the director of my program at Berklee, Rob Jackson. We got in contact with Fiona and, asked if there was any openings for a position at Abbey Road. And there was opening for a runner position. So I sent my CV, cover letter, and then I got Zoom interview because I was still in Brazil. So I did my interview, and they wanted to do a trial day with me here. So basically, spending a day at the studio, see how it goes.
Just come over from Brazil for trial day.
Exactly, yeah, basically.
Fun.
And because at that time Brazil was still on the red list for COVID. I kind of had to isolate for 2 weeks, and it was quite kind of a crazy situation. So I just emailed them and asked, look, I can certainly come to do the trial day. I just need 2 weeks. And they emailed me this was a Friday, so on Monday I got an email back saying, yeah, that's totally cool. So Monday I bought a ticket to leave Brazil on Tuesday. And on Tuesday I went to Switzerland for a week because I could fly there directly. Spent a week there, came to the UK, isolated for 10 days, and then did my trial day.
Wow.
That's quite a rush, but it was good.
How does a trial day look in a studio that you've never worked in before?
It's interesting because, you don't know what to expect, really, because every studio is different. But I think having a little bit of experience with my previous internships, I felt more at ease when I came in. But the team really made a whole difference because they really made me feel even more at ease. It's a very, Abbey Road is super professional studio. Everything we do here is just incredibly pro, and you find the best people that work here. But it's such a chill environment and welcoming environment that even on my trial day, I was talking to everyone. People were introducing me to the tech team and the people from the canteen and the front office and everything. So you just really feel like you're being welcomed. And I think on my trial day there was a film session being set up in Studio One. So I helped with setup. They were letting me put mics up and just really, I think they wanted to see how hands-on and how you get on with the team as well. So it was quite a day.
Wonderful. And then how long was it till you knew whether you got the job or not?
It was about a week, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So I came in, did the trial day.
Did you stay here in the UK or did you go back?
No, I stayed here. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
That'll be great. Yeah, I was like, I'll take the risk. But I came in, I was staying with a friend, and then once I got it, a week later, that's when I moved into my flat and everything, and just started to get settled.
And this was 2021?
This was October 2021, and I started here November 8th of 21. Yeah.
So you've been here a year and 3 months?
3 months, yeah, around that, yeah.
So senior runner, for your day-to-day, what does that mean? What do you do?
So it's quite a varied work place. So every day is sort of a different day at the studio. We work in all the rooms, basically. Studio 1, 2, 3, the smaller rooms, like the one we're now, the front room. So you could be either assigned to a session, so you'd be like the runner for the session, or you could be floating. This is what we call floating, is basically you'll be helping out every studio, whatever people need, you just sort of give them a hand. So if I'm doing the floating, for example, I'll just come in the morning around 8, check all the studios, see if everything is organized, working, if there's nothing out of place. And then if there's setups, I'll help with different sessions and setups and putting mics up, scratching mics, testing everything. If the session starts at 10, for example, we would do something that's called first takes, which is one of the coolest things we do. It's basically standing in front of the orchestra, and sometimes like 100-piece orchestra, and just in front of them with some headphones, and waiting for them to play the first 2-3 takes, just in case there's something that's not working, like a pair of headphones, a cable, a microphone. But you get this opportunity to be in front of the orchestra, and they're playing that piece of music for the very first time. And I have to say, it's almost always perfect. It's really a treat to just be there. So that will be part of our day as well. And then if you're in a session, you would just be inside the control room with an assistant, a recordist, the engineer, the composers, the clients, and just helping out with anything that happens. If your mic breaks, you just go in and change it, sort of like pit stop mode, as quick as possible, but as efficient as well. It's really every day is very different, but that's what I like about this, the fast pace of it.
What's your aspirations? Where do you want to go from here?
I have a real passion for production and mixing. Those two are my big things. As you mentioned before, I'm an artist. I play harmonica. That's my main instrument, and I've always grew up a performer and started writing music later on as well. So I really like the part of creating things, and being here, learning all the technical bits of it and the engineering parts and how each engineer does things differently, how film sessions are a completely different take on recording than like a band, an artist session. That to me only adds to what I create with my own music or with other artists and producing and mixing. So I really get like a wide range of like a variety of different roles here at Abbey Road. Like I'll be, even like when I'm floating sometimes, I'll just pop into like a mastering engineer's room and just check out what they're doing, or go to the penthouse and someone is doing an Atmos mixing. So yeah, for me, like production, mixing, and engineering sort of come together as a triangle.
So your next step is to get towards the engineer's chair?
Possibly, yeah. I think here the interesting thing about being here is that you come in with I want to do this and I want to do that, and then you come in, and because there's such a variety of things, of roles you see, you start opening up a bit more your options and what you could do in the future. So for example, I've never recorded music for film before. That was something that for me was quite new when I came here, and I never imagined I would be really into it. But now I'm so into it that would be something I would love to do. For example, be an engineer for music for films. But I think I'm still figuring it out as well as I go. You just have to like try out different things. But for me, I would say like engineering for film, mixing, and production are three of my top three right now at the moment.
Well, you did a vocal performance degree.
Yes.
What about vocal production?
That's again inside that goes into my production passion. I love doing vocal production.
No, I said I've noticed in America there's been a lot of women coming through as vocal producers.
Yeah. Because
a lot of women singers like working with women, sort of breaking down some of the barriers, because especially on like a song that's like super intimate, you can relate to another woman maybe on a different way than you can with a man.
Yeah, I think so. I think ultimately what you say, like it is a very intimate thing to be singing in a studio, inside a vocal booth with a microphone in front of you, headphones, and you can hear literally every single thing from your vocals into that headphones. So it's and I've been on both sides of.
So you can relate and understand.
Exactly. So it's easier for me to, like you said, relate, understand, and be try to make the singer, the artist, more comfortable in that situation. And each person is different. So it's
very much so. Yeah.
Each person is very different. Like some people, they'll come into the studio and they need you sometimes to push them a little bit. So you have to just sort of go, do their thing and record and just keep going. Other people come in and they're quite terrified by the experience. So you kind of have to really go slow and make them comfortable and
or take them out of that.
Take them out of that state of mind. So it's really about reading the room, independently of who you are as a producer. Like you just sort of have to try to understand your artist, and not just in a musical way, but many times in a personal way as well.
It seems like the runner position here, it's actually quite a good position to get into all these different environments, even maybe
Yeah.
more so than an assistant, because you're actually doing assistant engineering jobs by helping set up microphones and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But then you're also going out looking after mastering engineers at the same time as making sure the artist is comfortable and the producer is comfortable. There's quite a lot of opportunity to be around a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I like about this position, is that there's you get to see a lot of different facets of the studio and the environment. Like I said, going and talking to the artist and making sure the artist is all set with that day and their session. You're gonna set up mics. You have to really create relationships with everyone around you, not just the people in the session, but the people in the building. And you have to know who's on tech that day, and you have to know a lot of different things about all the different rooms and where things are. Especially that's a big one. Everyone is gonna ask you at some point as a runner, like, "Oh, where is this thing? Where is that thing? Where's that clip for that specific mic? Where is that cable for that other specific mic?" And you just have to sort of soak in as much information as possible, and just help out as much as you can. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks ever so much for sharing your experience here and how you got
You're
here.
welcome. Yeah, that's my pleasure. Yeah, thank you for having me on the channel. I love it.
Marvellous. So we're here with the wonderful Annie, who is, well, you've been our assistant the last 4 days.
I have, yes.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been good. Done
Excellent.
Learnt a lot and it's been fun.
So you've been here at Abbey Road for 6 months, did you say?
Yeah, it's 6.5 months now. Yeah, so I'm on my placement year. I've done 2 years at uni, and then I'm doing this for a year, and then I've got a year back at uni.
Oh, I see. So, and is the hope after a year here and then a year back at university, you'll come back here?
That's the hope, yes. See what
It's-
happens, but...
How often do they have people coming in here and doing 1 year placements?
So they take someone every year as a placement, or from my course anyway, they take someone every year.
Which course are you doing?
It's music and sound recording at the University of Surrey.
Where's the University of Surrey?
It's Guildford, so like...
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I know Guildford very well.
yeah. Along the A3.
Yes. Hogs back.
Yep.
Do you go to Anderton's?
I have been, yes, yeah.
Marvellous. So tell us a little bit about what they have you do here in your year that you're here.
Okay, yeah, so I'm working as a runner, and to begin with, you spend most of your time floating. So a floating shift is you're basically around for everyone. It's a bit like what Sarah was saying, you're available to everyone, and you help with any setups going on, pack downs. You make sure all the studios are tidy in the morning, doing all the fruit bowls, jugs, just basically getting everything ready for the day. And then you're around if anyone needs anything. And then the evenings, you just help with pack ups, that sort of thing. You can also get assigned to sessions, so then you're you spend the whole time with them, with whoever's on the session.
Like you have with us for the last 4 days?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And you get more involved. It's fun. It's more fun on the sessions, I think, because you're involved. You know what's going on, and yeah.
What's the hope? Let's say that you finish your year at college and you come back here. Where do you see yourself going?
I would either like to become an engineer, I think, or I'm really interested in film composition. So
Are you a musician?
I play violin, yeah.
Lovely.
Bit of piano, but mainly violin. So yeah, I've done some score compositions and things like that. So, and it's really interesting being here because you meet so many different people, and there are so many more jobs than I originally expected or knew of, and it's just it's really interesting to see it all and see all options available to go into.
I would imagine sort of being in Studio One when they're cutting, some of the most insane scores ever written for huge Hollywood blockbusters must be quite daunting, but also very inspiring.
Yeah, really cool. I was on a session. back in October for a Star Wars game soundtrack, the one Marta was talking about, and that was pretty amazing because like you get to just hear all the main themes in like a live orchestra, which is really exciting.
Do they provide you with specific training? Like, does anybody take you aside and say, this is how you do X, Y, and Z? Or is it more of a case of learning by osmosis, being around things?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's kind of just learning on the job because there are times like where someone will show you, oh, this is how you do this, but it's kind of just initiative and like going and asking people, oh, how do you do this? Or if you're unsure on something, it's really good because everyone's like so friendly and they want to help you because then when you're assigned onto sessions, you become more useful. So, it's kind of a bit of both. Sometimes people will be like, oh, this is how you do this, but then sometimes you're kind of like, you've got to ask people or something like that. So,
what do they teach you on the course?
So on the course, there's like, we have loads of different modules. We do like recording techniques, we learn all about acoustics, the electronics side of it. So it's actually quite like varied. And then we have lots of recording equipment. We have 3 studios and then a nice range of microphones.
What sort of consoles are in the studios?
There's Studio Vista. We used to have in Studio 2, we used to have an SSL. But they've recently changed that to a Neve desk, similar to what we've got in Studio 1 and 2 here. So I'm looking forward to going back and using that because hopefully I'll be good at that.
Well, do you feel like the course has prepared you a lot for coming in here?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Like you get a lot of, you can have your own studio time and the stuff that you learn on the course is useful for here. But then also I think with this subject, and like as a career, is a lot of it is learning on the job because there's a lot of problems that arise that you can't really teach yourself to overcome. So I think part of it is just learning on the job, which is why I think a placement year is really good. I think it's really beneficial to the career. So
fantastic.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.